Good morning. I want to talk about a useful emacs function I found recently, unintentionally, I guess. So I have a lot of browser tabs open. I don't know if you know. Probably a lot of people do. And I have been desirous of something that can save my session and be able to get me back to where I was before. And I use the history. I unironically have a Mozilla account or a Firefox account, and sync my history and bookmarks and sessions between all those systems, because it is far more valuable to me to be able to slightly recall something and be able to pick through my history until I find it than to lose something entirely. So I can pretty much keep track of everything that I've seen and pull up a source pretty quickly, or gather more information about it, or refresh my mind on something that I partially recall. And there are problems with Firefox, obviously. It's probably the least troublesome browser. Least useful, troublesome browser. Most useful, least troublesome browser. I'm not sure what the balance is, but it's on the spectrum there somewhere. Unfortunately, closer to Chrome than I'm comfortable with. But that's part of why I'm talking about this. I wanted to be able to keep track of. I had blocks of tabs that I wanted to use, and I have systems that are not very resource heavy. So having these tabs open in the off chance, in the case that I need to come back to them really quickly, to be able to open up 10 tabs on something so that I can flip between them really easily for reference material or whatever I'm looking at, whatever I need it for, is very useful. But having 10 tabs open while they are not useful is a resource intensive. So I wanted to be able to take that session, I would call it, or save a window or something like that, and take a little snapshot of that, and then be able to call that up, close it entirely so it's not taking up space using resources, and then open it later on and pick up right where I left off. And there are a few extensions that can do this, and I know this because I wanted this, and I started looking into this, and I wound up choosing one of those extensions, and then the extension either stopped working or needed more permissions or some other form of annoyance with I forget what it's called. It's pretty much Google that sets the browser standards. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to change that. You're not allowed to remove ads from modify the content because it might security. Yeah, you have to look at all the ads because of security, science, data science. So these extensions live inside this ecosystem. That's right, yeah. I also had that other bit of interesting thing where I wrote a little bit of JavaScript that did some decrypting. So you could live decrypt stuff on a web page, and it was saved as a bookmarklet, which is a bit of JavaScript that runs on it's technically external JavaScript because you're running it, but you are the user, you are the operator. So the operator can't run JavaScript because that's a security thing. Yeah, you can't do that. You can't spin up new JavaScript processes and kill old JavaScript processes because it's a security. Just keep looking at the ads, all right? Good heavens. Right, so yeah, I made that bookmarklet, and literally 1 week later they were like, hey, so we just updated the I forget what it's called, I'm gonna have to look it up, the browser standards. We're no longer allowing that. That's a security hazard. That's illegal now. You can't do that. And by the way, everyone else is accepting it, so good luck. You know, uBlock origin is fantastic, and almost required. I'm going to say necessary for any kind of browsing today, but it's ad blocking went from a niche thing that nerds such as myself did to something that's normal, that everyone just like, oh, click the button that says, that has that shield with a U on it, and then it says, do you accept the terms and conditions? And then you click yes, and then it blocks ads for you. Yeah, everyone figured it out, and now people are getting a little nervous, perhaps. I don't know what that is, banging around in there. As usual, the normies ruin everything. I hate to digress. Just kidding, I love to digress. I was thinking about that, like, oh, the normies ruin everything. And the internet was primarily, and you can... the internet pretty much was for nerds and geeks and people who were into this kind of thing originally. And that's where a lot of the internet culture started. You know, things like... there's a lot of word, you know, grok and things like that are popular among programmers and old computer users, or old internet users, I guess you could say, old friends, and they're usually built off of like sci-fi and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff that those people were interested in. So you can have a little commonality sharing amongst yourselves, and say, oh, this internet thing is this is our area because we're nerds and geeks and we like this kind of stuff, and that's cool. You know, we're allowed to geek out a little bit and be silly and make references to Monty Python and all that stuff. And all of that was just kind of accepted because that's how it was. And then as more people got into the internet, you know, it technically became a kind of a curated space, because it was just for those people. And to an extent, there are areas like Twitter, like surprisingly, Twitter is a lot of writers and programmers. Just people like an inordinate amount, a very high percentage of writers and programmers. So you still have these little bastions of things, sections of the internet where there's a certain level of culture, but all of that culture is just being homogenized out into, well, I would say it's being homogenized out into nothing or into a mush, but it's actually being run through a, what's it called, a meat grinder, to be meshed together and squeezed out into a little sausage casing, a sausage tube, which, you know, billionaires, I guess, are deciding what the sausage tube is, what is allowed to be spoken, what is not allowed, what is allowed to be talked about, what'll get you kicked off, all that stuff. This is something of an argument for these alternative web methods like Gopher and Gemini and Gemini and stuff like that. You got the vanity hood scoop on the Toyota Corolla. Nice. So it really, you know, there's a lot of talk about toxicity on the internet today and stuff like that. And I can talk about how in the old days, getting berated and getting excluded from whatever the group was because you weren't a geek, or you didn't get the Monty Python references or whatever, you just didn't fit in. I can say how that's not necessarily a good thing. I can also say that you know, Xbox Live Call of Duty lobbies, pre-game lobbies were made people of sterner stuff, required people of sterner stuff, but that isn't necessarily a good thing. It's actually quite a bad thing. Like, yes, I was exposed to all these terrible, horrible words when I was 12 and got a headset mic and plugged in to Xbox Live. Like, that's not helpful. That's not a good thing. That's not something that we should be proud of. It is a thing it is a thing that happened, and that's pretty much all you can say. I can say, however, that as a society, we are required, as a country, and perhaps as a nation, for some values of nation, we are required to make strong men at the very least. And that's a requirement, because if you have weak men, then you don't have anything for very long. Because if someone what is that word? It's not Maxwell's equilibrium. Nash equilibrium, that's right. It's a Nash equilibrium, where if another country gets chemical weapons, then you got to get chemical weapons. And if another country builds an army, then you have to build an army, and all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, you still need strong men, and you can't have strong men if someone can cause them to curl up into the fetal position by saying words. There's a Monty Python sketch about the funniest joke, the killer joke. You might want to look up. It's pretty hilarious. Words are weapons. So, it's not good that tweens and young teens are exposed to nastiness. It's not necessarily something that we want to, hey, destroying the innocence of children is A-okay, as long as it takes place in a kind and loving environment. We still need strong men. And that comes from, iron sharpens iron. Men make strong men. Men make men stronger. But only when men are allowed to be men, and boys are allowed to be boys. Yeah, people think boys will be boys is like an excuse. It's not an excuse. It's like saying water is wet. Right. So this digression. Where was I? Making people stronger. The internet. Yeah, the internet culture thing. Yeah, the culture is. It was very much a separate culture, its own culture, and other people weren't allowed in it. And now that more people are being allowed in it, it doesn't really make much sense still. Because there are still corners of the internet where things are different. However, terms and conditions and code of conduct, actually, are things that are tools that are being standardized across systems. And that's very much not okay. So yes, there are going to be different zones of the internet. There should be different zones. There should be different levels of internet. And people should stick to their zone and know your lane. Well, I believe I've quite forgotten my original point. Well, anyways, bookmarks. Yeah, people are trying to decide what we get to do with our computers. And by people, I mean like billionaires who want to get richer, because that's what billionaires want to do, because it's what they've always done. And they're making decisions that affect literally everyone with an internet connection. Or everyone with a browser, I should say. So maybe that's why I'm talking about Gemini and some of these other alternatives, Gopher and such. Protocols, not platforms, right? Although there's stuff we can do about that. I'm sorry, there's stuff they can do about that. But so bookmarks, yeah, saving browser sessions. So the point is, I want to have more control over my computer, and I want to be able to do stuff with it as it as it suits me. Seems odd. And Emacs can do that. I found out that I can make, with a short bit of eLisp, I can make a nice little function wherein I can dump a list, you know, just a new line separated list of URLs and save them. And in org mode, you can click a link and it'll open it directly in your browser. Or you can run the, you know, if you've got a stack of 10 URLs, you can click on the surrounding function and then run the function, and then it'll open up in your browser all those 10 tabs, which is pretty cool. And while you can say, well, there's an app that can do that. Yeah, there's an app that runs on a separate system in someone else's controlled store that you may or may not have to pay for, or may or may not have to endure ads for. But if you've got it in Emacs, or if you've got it done your own way, then it's yours forever. So, it's objectively better.